Lying 42 kilometers east of Vancouver, Maple Ridge is a unique city on Canada's west coast. It is located in the northeastern section of Greater Vancouver between the Fraser River and the Golden Ears, a group of mountain summits which are the southernmost of the Garibaldi Ranges of the Coast Mountains. Covering an area of 130 square kilometers, Maple Ridge has a population of about 91,000. Maple Ridge is located on the traditional, unceded territories of the Katzie and the Kwantlen First Nations. Their ancestors lived in this area for thousands of years. Maple Ridge was incorporated as a district municipality on September 12, 1874. In fact, it is the fifth oldest municipality in British Columbia after New Westminster, Victoria, the Township of Lanley, and Chilliwack. On March 26, 2014, Maple Ridge residents voted to change the community's status from district municipality to city. Subsequently, Maple Ridge Council submitted to the provincial government its request for status change. The status change took effect on September 12, 2014, coinciding with Maple Ridge's 140th anniversary of municipal incorporation. Maple Ridge has been part of Metro Vancouver since 1995. For Vancouverites and Canadians elsewhere, the best way to start exploring Maple Ridge is to pay a visit to the Haney House located at 224th Street. Haney House, one of Canada's few remaining mid-Victorian heritage homes, was home to Thomas Haney and his family. The home remained in the Haney family until 1979, when it was sold to the city for $1. The collections throughout the house are primarily Haney family's artifacts. The downtown core area of Maple Ridge was once known as Haney. This name started from a beautiful family home that was built in 1883 on the brow of a hill overlooking the Fraser River by settler Thomas Haney and his family. It is an incredible learning experience to walk through hundreds of carefully preserved artifacts and architecture, in that the home showcases life in the early 1900s. Thomas Haney was born in Nova Scotia in 1841, and Anne was born in Ontario in 1846. They were married in Ontario in 1873. In 1876, Thomas and Anne Haney came west to Maple Ridge. Trained as a brickmaker, Thomas sought out land with clay suitable for brick making. In 1879, Thomas and Anne purchased 160 acres of land for $1,000. Here, the Haneys built their home in 1883 and raised their family on land that stretched from the Fraser River to Dewdney Trunk Road and from 222nd Street to 225th Street. Thomas Haney opened the first brickyard in Maple Ridge, running the business for 11 years, after which he began a livery stable. Thomas became a municipal councillor and a land assessor in 1877. He also drew up the first town plan, and soon the town site came to be known as Port Haney. The Haneys were a generous family, often helping newcomers to find land and settle in Maple Ridge. Visiting priests were invited to hold Mass in the parlor of their home every Sunday. The Haneys served breakfast to all those present. In 1881, when the congregation grew too large, Thomas Haney built the first St. Patrick's Catholic Church on his property, donating both land and money. On February 27, 1916, Thomas Haney died in his home, surrounded by family. He was buried in the Maple Ridge Cemetery. Anne Haney died on March the 8th, 1931, and was buried alongside Thomas. Thomas and Anne had 6 children. Over time, Haney House went through a series of renovations. For instance, electricity and plumbing were added to the house in 1923. Descendants of the Haney family lived in the home until 1979. The Haney House was donated to the municipality along with the acre of land it stands on as a heritage site for the enjoyment of future generations. Since the Haney House was occupied throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, there have been renovations, additions, and updates done throughout, adding elements like a bathroom, plumbing, heating, and electricity that are not original to the house. Significant renovations to turn the home into a museum were done in 1980, restoring much of the house to its original Victorian appearance. The conservation and restoration work helped make Haney House more historically accurate and assist with interpretation efforts. With the financial assistance of the province through the BC Canada 150 program and Maple Ridge City Capital funds, the Haney House has had much needed renovations and restorations.
English has grammars like commas and such, or like exclamation marks. Punjabi doesn't.
To gain a comprehensive knowledge about Maple Ridge's recent history, the Maple Ridge Museum and Community Archives on 116th Avenue is a must-see. Situated in Jim Hotchkiss Park overlooking the Fraser River, Maple Ridge Museum collects, preserves, and shares the material culture and stories of historic Maple Ridge. The Community Archives is located next door in the historic Brickyard office. The first logging in the district occurred piecemeal as settlers took up homesteads under the Settlement Acts of the colonial and Canadian government. In 1874, Free Homestead Act required settlers to have cleared 15 acres of wooded land from their property claim within 2 years. Wood collected in this way could be used on a homestead as fuel or construction material, but could not be sold without additional licenses. Therefore, the forest was seen by early settlers as a hindrance and threat to the household economy, even as the settlers depended on wood for maintenance and operation of their farms. As commercial logging developed, farmers came into conflict with loggers, who they thought were profiting unfairly from the resource. Large-scale logging began in 1912 with the creation of the Abernethy and Low-Heat Logging Company. The forest industry played a crucial role in the early development of Maple Ridge. Specifically, the history of the Hammond Cedar Mill goes back to 1910, providing employment opportunities to generations of Maple Ridge residents. The Maple Ridge Museum is home to over 15,000 objects from Maple Ridge's history. However, due to the restrictions of the facility size, less than 1% of its collections is ever on display. The staff seeks to resolve this issue by providing a rotating display of highlights from its collections that may otherwise go unseen by the public. Japanese Canadians are an important part of the Maple Ridge history. The first group of Japanese arrived in the Maple Ridge area as early as 1904. These were primarily young men from Japan who dreamed of owning property and financial security. The main draw to Maple Ridge was the farming opportunity. At the time, it was difficult for Japanese Canadians to find work due to the xenophobic attitudes of white settlers, known in Japanese as the Hakujin. Buying land and berry farming offered the Nisei, namely first-generation Japanese Canadian settlers, the ability to be self-reliant and build a future for themselves. By the end of the 1930s, the Japanese Canadian community accounted for 30% of the Maple Ridge population. Through tremendous hard work and their introduction of greenhouse farming to the area, their berry farms became very successful. Most of them were now the Nisei, notably second-generation Japanese Canadians, who were born in Maple Ridge and were Canadian citizens by birthright. The Nisei grew up in two worlds, resulting in fewer cultural differences. They attended English public schools during the day and Japanese language schools in the late afternoon, immersing themselves in both cultures. As word spread about the opportunity in Maple Ridge, the Japanese Canadian community began to grow. Nokai, that is, agricultural collectives and community halls, began to form in Hammond, Haney, Warnock, and Ruskin. These would become the focal points of the Japanese Canadian community, serving many purposes such as facilitating the sales of produce grown by Japanese Canadians, hosting community events, providing lessons on Canadian culture, and creating a space to discuss rising tensions with the Hakujin. As the Japanese Canadian community grew and flourished in Maple Ridge, so did anti-Japanese beliefs. Some Hakujin tolerated, accepted, and even befriended their Japanese Canadian neighbors. However, there were also many who held on to beliefs of the need for cultural purity in the Fraser Valley. Some felt that the success of Japanese Canadian farmers was a direct threat to the livelihoods of Hakujin farmers. Anti-Japanese sentiment was not only a local issue, but was supported at a provincial and federal level. Discriminatory laws removing any Asian Canadians' right to vote were implemented on a provincial and federal level in 1895 and 1920, respectively. In 1908, Japanese male immigrants were limited to 400 a year, and in 1928, the limit was further reduced to 150 per year. In 1919, the number of fishing licenses available to Japanese Canadians began to be restricted. Inspired by a similar law in the United States, a law to prohibit Japanese Canadians from buying or leasing land was also considered. Prior to World War II, there were about 22,000 Japanese Canadians living in British Columbia. Economic decline in the 1930s, and especially the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, fueled an increasing fear of the Japanese community in general. Shortly after Canada declared war on Japan in response to the attack on Pearl Harbor, Prime Minister Mackenzie King ordered all Japanese males between the ages of 14 and 45 to be moved inland to safeguard the Pacific coast from alleged Japanese spies. By the end of 1942, all Japanese families living in the lower mainland had been sent to internment camps in the BC interior. Many Japanese Canadians were relocated to southern Alberta, where they work on sugar beet farms. Japanese Canadians were told that their property would be kept and protected for them by the Office of the Custodian of Enemy Property until internment was over. However, in January 1943, only 1 year into internment, the custodian's office was given the right to sell all property without the consent of their owners. The reason stated by officials was that their properties and belongings were losing value due to disuse, disrepair, and theft. In truth, internment was expensive, and selling their property reduced the government's financial burden by making Japanese Canadians pay for their basic needs. Shortly before the end of World War II, Japanese Canadians were forced by the government to make a choice to move east of the Rockies with minimal government assistance or be sent to Japan. In August 1945, when the war ended, the government attempted to remove 10,000 Japanese Canadians. Despite legal battles and public outcry, 4,000 Japanese Canadians were still exiled to war-torn Japan. It wasn't until 1949 that all the restrictions were finally lifted and Japanese Canadians were allowed to re-enter the coastal zone. The forced sale of their property during the war was more than just financial loss. It also impacted the ability to pass on generational wealth. The consequences were deep and felt for generations, in that it also was the loss of many homes and of family memories. Only 7 of the 300 Japanese Canadian families from Maple Ridge returned to the community after internment. They had to start from scratch all over again, since all their farms had been sold and any remaining possessions destroyed or auctioned off by the federal government. For some, the pain and hurt of returning to a home that had been stripped away from them was too much to bear. For others, they bore a complicated relationship with their former homes. They came back to find new families living in their homes, and the community that they grew up is gone. The fight for justice was a long road. In the aftermath of the war, Japanese Canadians protested their dispossession and created enough public outcry that the government was compelled to act. The result was the Royal Commission inquiry headed by Justice Byrd from 1947 to 1950, where the government acknowledged that they may have mismanaged their properties. In the 1980s, Japanese Canadians once again mobilized in the fight for redress. It was time for the acknowledgement of the full scope of the injustice of internment, including the immediate and future financial losses, the trauma, and the loss of civil rights. In 1988, after years of hearings, lobbying, and negotiations, the federal government finally formally acknowledged their wrongdoings, resulting in individual and community compensation. Maple Ridge offers many opportunities to learn about the geography of the area, industrial development, as well as unique historical and cultural heritage. Port Haney was one of many communities whose life depended on the Fraser River. For many years, the center of town was by the railroad tracks and the river. Log sorts, the Haney Brick and Tile Company, and other industrial activities took place on the banks of the Fraser and Pitt Rivers and Kanaka Creek. Brick making began in Port Haney during the 1870s, when several men, including Thomas Haney, exploited the abundant deposit of blue clay in seasonal brick yards. In 1907, on the former Hinch Road, present-day 225th Street, Ori Baines and Harold Burnett purchased a riverside lot from a Mr. Carlson. Like many Europeans who came to Haney, these men knew that the soil could give them what they wanted: creamy gray clay. While small brick-making operations had gone on here for years, the founders of the Port Haney Brick and Tile Company were keen on the business opportunity presented by the convenient nexus of the ample site and its clay deposits, good access to the river and railroad, and their special observation: the growing demand for brick to face the public buildings of rapidly expanding Vancouver. The Port Haney Brick Company proved to be a successful and long-lived brick-making operation, and it remained in continuous operation until 1977. Throughout the 70 years, while pumping out tons of clay products such as facing brick for buildings, the company expanded and diversified, producing drainage tile for agricultural fields in the 1930s onward, and tile and consumer products such as flower pot for gardening. Over time, brick was used for construction less and less, and plastic pipe replaced drainage tile, so the owners decided to close down the operation in 1977. Maple Ridge is a quaint town that is capable of generating many memorable moments. Stop by City Hall and spend a few moments to admire the unique horse clock tower. Take a stroll at the Memorial Peace Park and pay a tribute to the fallen soldiers who sacrificed their lives defending world peace. Nature lovers should set aside some time to hike in the famed Kanaka Creek Regional Park or the UBC Research Forest and the tranquil Loon Lake. Those outdoor enthusiasts can explore the Golden Ears Provincial Park nearby.
Shall we go there?
Thank you for watching and listening. Please subscribe to this channel, Words of Woods.